Okay, I'm going to have to speak fast then. Also, we'll have a chance to comment on this on tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
We believe that there is already, and there was already, much more understanding and common ground between the key parties than what we were able altogether to really capitalize. So we have to really change certain things. We have to build trust again. We have to be better at listening to each other. And regarding trust, one of the key issues, and has to do with this, whether we are going to aim for a legally binding agreement or not. We believe, as host country of the next COP, that we have to be less obsessed about the final legal form of the agreement, and hopefully to work more and make more progress on the actual substance. And then, of course, I'm assuring that we need the substance, and of course, we have the need of an implementable accord that give us the result that we all want. Instead of a legally binding accord in the short term, while that is the ultimate objective perhaps in the future, what we are discussing now with many parties is how international frameworks can then be followed by domestically legally binding issues. Then that would allow to respect sovereignty of all countries, but at the same time to send signals of certainty. Countries like India and many others, they have a great record, a positive record of the Supreme Court and the local legislation being applied effectively to move forward the environmental agenda, and climate is not an exception. So I think that we have to be more realistic, we have to be patient, we have to restore trust and to respect every country. And if you allow me very, very quickly, a quick comment on I cannot help as a government person to talk very briefly about the vested interest issue. As in my experience, the last 20 years as a government person and many years as a regulator, I think that we have the challenge as governments to establish realistic standards with the right timing, with the right signals, avoiding the lowest common denominator. Sometimes we are under a lot of pressure from those that are more slow, that want to continue capitalizing, making profits out of obsolete technology, out of not the very good practices, while others are ready to move forward. So we have the challenge of finding what's the right pace for legislation. We have to send clear signals. And again, one of the main weapons is to have the right information. Nowadays, that we have the possibility to exchange information with other countries, to have access to what's the best technologies, what's the real cost of technologies, then we can use that back home to show to everybody within the business sector what is realistic, what is feasible, what is affordable, within a reasonable timing, and so that at the end we deliver what is our obligation, which is look for the public interest and not just preserving the interest of very small minorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been in a sense the kickoff panel, the green economy, many of the strands of reality from subsidies to perverse subsidies, rather, vested interests to the opportunities, the regulatory lessons, the transitions also in the business community. I think we have touched on many of those aspects that will ultimately determine how quickly we move forward. I think what was also interesting in the discussion here this morning is that it is not always the perfect chronology and consecutive pathway that we walk. We thought Copenhagen could give us a shortcut to a world that has already fallen behind in terms of its timetable, but it didn't quite succeed. But at the same time, the low-carbon economy has not gone off the agenda, and perhaps in the context of the green economy, we will see many more of these initiatives moving forward that do not necessarily require, but would benefit from a global framework. And so it is not an either-or, but I think it is probably on multiple tracks that we will be moving forward. And Indonesia presented recently at our Governing Council in Bali the removal of its subsidies for fossil fuels as the most important single green economy measure it has taken, which went into, I think, the hundreds of millions of dollars, simply in terms of removing a subsidy that was encouraging fossil fuel and using that money for social equity programs. The question, I think, at this meeting here is, how do we ensure that the transition towards a green economy that is inevitable by many different criteria will happen by design or by default? And I think a volcano has taught us that being taken by surprise is never a good idea. Thank you.